Hi, my name is Frankie. Thank you for listening to my mom. I never listen.
Literally on the road with nothing but Ned and Coach LeFlar from UMass. Coach, thank you so much for being with us. And
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate being here and you taking the time.
listen, we're excited about what you're doing at UMass. I mean, I know you're on Tori's staff and he left to take the pit job, but for you, what has been um, something that's been really familiar and what's been something very different?
Well, I mean, just the support here that I knew that existed, obviously being here 5 years on the staff before getting a head coaching job, the support here from the community, from administration, has been off the charts. And we haven't won as many games as I would have hoped at this point, but I think the support that's wrapped around our team and from the community and again administration, other teams here, has been really, really welcomed from our entire program. And I've really appreciated that. One thing that's new, it's funny, I joked with our team early in the season, like that this job moving over one seat hasn't felt that much different for me because I feel like I've had a lot of responsibility on staff, different, I've really enjoyed just delivering the daily message and to keep us charted on a path that I want to make sure we continue to go on. And, despite our record, again, not being what I hoped it would be, I know and I continue to preach to our team that we're close, and I think we really turned a corner starting Atlantic 10 play from a belief standpoint and from a basketball standpoint. As I'm going to tell them and remind them today, like our last 4 games, we've had leads in the second half. And 3 of our last 4 games, we've had leads in the fourth quarter. And again, it's just now believing and figuring out a way how to close those games.
When I look at UMass as a brand, I think obviously on the men's side, there's been such great history there. And hiring Frank Martin to me was a big boost for the administration, knowing what kind of character and kind of coach Frank Martin is from his time at South Carolina and K-State. And I look at UMass women and I think a very similar way, but a more recent history because you've had success in the A10. And so you're sort of a derivative of some of that success. Obviously, you've been a part of championship teams there. When you're looking at this time of year, coach, and you're thinking about situations in the game and, like you said, you've had some leads that have dissipated late. What are ways that you keep your kids believing? Because you also use the word believe in there as well.
Well, I think just staying really, really consistent with the messaging and again, making sure they understand all the really good things that we've been doing in games and how we've been growing. We have 10 new players and I just talked with a couple of our point guards today about remaining positive in our huddles on the court because, the relationships just aren't established because of time, where I think in the past, like we can really get on each other in those moments. The relationships haven't been established yet. So continuing for the players to continue to stay positive with each other, I think is a real key. And then for me personally, I think just trying to find the go-to players or maybe go-to plays when we need a bucket. I've tried different combinations, and that's something that, we were really fortunate to have in the past. I mean, we had 2-time Atlantic 10 Player of the Year, Sam Breen, and we could just throw it to her and she was going to make something happen, whether it was for herself or for someone else. And we're still trying to figure that out. And it's something I hope we would have figured out by this time. But again, it's something we're still growing through and learning through.
You also had Philoxy, the great point guard, and Sydney Taylor, who could score on the wing. You had a lot of really good pieces. So, when you're looking at some of the things that it took to win that championship and to play in the NCAA tournament, like you guys were able to do, what's the carryover, and is there any? And with 10 new faces, it's a part of college basketball now, right? I mean, everybody is dealing with trying to put chemistry together. So, what's next?
Well, the carryover honestly has to be my messaging because we have a relatively new staff as well. And even our 3 players that did return from last year's team, 2 of them, all 3 are seeing significant playing time. 2 of them are starting. But as I was talking with them the other day, like they weren't always a part of those on-court huddles late in games. For them, this is a new experience as well in terms of how many minutes they're getting. So again, I can't remind myself enough that every day walk into practice is about teaching. And sometimes it's about teaching on-court leadership. Sometimes it's about teaching self-motivation, team motivation. Some days it's about teaching, hey, we need to get excited for this play and we need to give high fives here. And other days it's about teaching, we're going to enter the ball in the post from free throw line or below. So I think it's for my staff and I, just constant and continual reminders that we're really teaching everything. And, I've been a part of it, the winning tradition here and building it here. And it's continuing to remind my staff how it will happen and our team as well.
I like this time of year for the reasons that you're just stating, because most of what we've talked about so far has been about chemistry and connection and trying to make sure you're building the right relationships with your players and trying to put everybody in the right spots. It's such a big puzzle. I don't know if anybody, I know coaches realize, but your fans and fans of the game sometimes don't understand how much time it takes to put all those pieces together. There's some that are on a short timetable and there's others that have a longer timetable vision. Where are you in your process and your vision of, the things that you want to do?
Well, I think for me, just establishing what I want the program to be about this first year, and just preaching to our team, like I want us to be the most competitive, the most vocal and most together team we can be every day. And that's really been a consistent message for me and a message I've shared with the team daily. And I feel really good about that. In terms of the time for table, I'm a coach and I want instant gratification as much as our players do. But again, I can't stress enough the amount of support from the community, from coaching friends, the text messages I get that are encouraged by, our continued improvement and by just, I think, the trust in me and in our process. And as hard as it is to remind myself of that, after some tough losses recently, I think it does make me feel good that I know we're doing the right things. I know we're coaching and building relationships the right way. I thought the relationship building would come a little quicker because I try and make myself available for our players and our 3 assistants and our whole staff in general. I think are connectors and they're extroverted people. But again, I think it's, and it takes years to establish those relationships and the players you mentioned, Sam Breen, Destiny Philoxy, Sydney Taylor, as I think about how I coached in my role on the staff the last couple of years, there was such a trust there, in-game adjustment, halftime adjustment, we're going to do this on a ball screen, on a stagger, we could do it. And there wasn't a lot of why. It was like, oh, I trust him. He knows what he's talking about. He's helped us before. And I think that just comes with time.
As we're trying to learn more about you, your style, your philosophy, and I love having this conversation because you say connector, and I think that's such an important word in basketball. And then there's another word that I think at times being a disruptor is always important also. It can manifest itself in a situation in the game where you have to be disruptive with your defense or change your approach offensively. But also it could mean overall being a disruptor in the landscape of the game. When you're trying to send your message and we're trying to learn more about you, what would be some of the words that would come to your mind about who you are, what you're doing, your philosophy, and how you're putting the pieces together?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned earlier, I want there, and I said this to all of our players in the recruiting process, whether it was freshmen or our transfers, like I want there to be a consistency to my approach. I want them to know what to expect every day they walk in the gym. There's enough ups and downs in their lives, especially with social media and comparisons. I want them to feel really good about who I'm going to be every day. You know, whether we're winning by 20 or losing by 20, I don't want them to walk on eggshells. So I want myself and our staff to be really, really consistent for them. Yeah, I think there's a calmness to my approach in game, but there's a competitiveness. I'm fiery on the court, especially at practice. You know, I want our players to play with that emotion. You know, as I told them, and not in a negative way, like, you know, we're not going to be the most talented team many nights, but it doesn't mean we can't win because of our ball movement and win because of our balance. You know, I think, and those are constant messages that I preach. I want our players to feel like they can play with some freedom out there. And I'm just really, really consistent with that. You know, the one challenge, and this might be a little bit off topic, the one challenge for me moving to this role was like those daily connections and the daily relationship building, shooting before practice, shooting after practice. Like I'm still trying to find a way to integrate myself into that, because that's where so much relationship building comes as an assistant coach. And that's something that was a real strength of mine. One, building relationships, but two, really affecting our individual players. And from my seat now, you know, I understand it's a different role, and I have to worry about the team. But I think my biggest challenge is trying to find ways that I can positively affect everyone's individual experience and becoming better players too. You know, and that's something I'm working through personally. I think as I approach each day and each practice.
Yeah, well, I would say as the CEO, having that incredible self-awareness about what your team needs and when they need it and at what point they need it is why you're going to be successful, coach. And we're literally grateful for your time on the road with us on Nothing But Net. So thank you so much. And we look forward to following your success as the season moves forward. So thank you for being with us. And by the way, nothing's ever off topic on this podcast.
Thanks so much, David. Really appreciate the time.
Good to see you. Good luck. And we'll keep pulling for you.
Safe travels. Take care.
Thanks.